but we don't want to rely just on that. So we're going to take a safety strap. You're going to come over each side, just like this. And it really locks them in there. It's not as uncomfortable as it looks, but it's not like a Disney ride or anything like that either.
Basically, if we're coming to get you, you're probably in more pain than this strap will add to your situation.
Yeah, and the whole goal of everything is to get them off the ground and in the bird as safely as possible. So there's no getting out of that. And what we'll be doing, if it's a direct deployment rescue, is we'll be wearing our TriStar swimmer harness, which it's not too much different than the rappel harnesses. The only difference is it has flotation on it and it comes up over the shoulders, and we'll hook in with you. All right, and when we start bringing them up here, we'll push off the tire there with our foot or whatnot and kind of cradle them to make sure that they're not hitting their head or anything like that. What we'll do is we'll hoist them all the way to the top and then bring them down in. That way we're not scraping their back or anything like that. And the same goes with the vest as well, because it's different every time. Just you're pushing off, the wind might catch you a little bit different or whatnot, but still get you out of there.
Another thing that I've learned from being the victim and practicing with the guys is you remember to tell the person that's getting hoisted just to let the crew chief move them and try not to help, because he's going to be adjusting the hoist for the load and the wind, and basically what he's going to do is he's going to bring you up nice and slow, and then it gets slower by the door, and then he wants to move the people into the aircraft. It's easier for these guys if you just let yourself get pulled in rather than trying to help.
Another thing is, when you guys are the ground crew and we're over top, it's going to be different every time, and they might still be hooked up, so they might be getting pulled off the deck a little bit, and they're going to be calling the bird back down. That's completely normal to kind of get pushed around. The rope will be flying. Try to put them under your armpit or whatnot behind you. That way you can kind of work on whatever you're doing, because you're probably down on your knees or whatnot. But it's normal for them to get pulled off the deck a little bit, or moved around. That's standard procedure for us. So. It might look kind of different, but it's normal. So. But anything else to add other than?
No. What kind of questions do you get? I mean, it's easier for us to cater towards the group. You guys have a lot of questions. If you have any questions about our capabilities, whether the aircraft capabilities, medical capabilities, just what we like doing in our general lives.
What's your range? How far can you go in this before?
We can fly, well, it kind of depends on how long we spend in a hover. So we can usually fly for about 3 hours, but our burn rate increases quite a bit if we're in a hover. So if we're in a situation where our only option is a short haul because it's over 200 feet and we don't have the hoisting option available to us, our range is the time on station is gonna decrease immensely if we have to be in the hover. But like Chief said, if we can land, drop you off, and get out of here so that everybody can work and we're not around, that's okay. But better is if we can just sit on the deck. That's gonna increase the range the most. So and then as we get a situation, if we find ourselves kind of out of our normal working area, we'll just try to find fuel nearby and just work, just start working that into the equation.
And to expand on that, we have actually done rescues all the way down as far as Portland and into Canada. Not recently.
Just to give a number, if we're going to go out there, drop you off, and leave, about 175 miles from the nearest source of fuel is the best we can do. So we go out 175, find a scene, lower people down, and then we got to beat right back out of there to get gas. And so hopefully it's within 175 miles of a source of fuel.
And that might also play into how much time we're willing to spend on scene and what rescue devices we end up using, because if we're limited on time because of fuel, we're going to try to get that out of there as much.
Do you need a major airport like Portland International, or can you go to a general aviation?
Anybody that has Jet Alpha.
Oh, okay.
Portland, I think, is the only one that I saw in this area that had it.
Oh.
Was it Pearson is the one that's nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I didn't see any Jet
Yeah.
Alpha
No,
there.
I fly out of Pearson that had jet. I had a question. I was stationed at Whidbey in the 60s a little bit out of Sandpoint, but that's at least a couple hundred miles from there.
170.
170.
Mm-hmm.
So
And for us, it took us a bit longer. I was telling us people because when we were lacing through here, we ended up come
So did
down.
you pop
around.
over to Portland to get some fuel or what?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, the 175
You have
is
enough
out
fuel
there
to
and then
play
turn
with
around and go
that,
back.
And go
So we
home.
have enough. We were planning on stopping at
Right.
Gray Army Field and getting gas there before we
Oh.
continue on home. So and if it doesn't, if for some reason the weather's not letting that happen, we'll turn around and come back to Portland and get some gas.
For the pilot side, obviously we landed quite far away from you. As a general rule, like at least one rotor arc away from the rotor arc, where we're gonna look for you guys to stand. And I personally get so nervous when people are not transiting at the 9 and the 3. That just like, cause I know that's the safest place. Now granted, if we're in a situation where we've landed and you have uphill on one side of the helicopter, obviously even if it's the long way, please come to the downhill side. And I'm not saying that you can't transit anywhere but 3 and 9, but if you're going to, make sure that you're with one of us, because they're gonna be able to talk to me, and I'm gonna, like, if you can prep me for that. But it makes me personally really nervous if people are doing anything other than 3 and 9. So please, 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 3 and 9. Tell your friends, 3 and 9.
And the reason I say that is because these rotors can dip down as low as 4 feet off the deck, off the nose. So I think most people here are a little bit taller than 4 feet. So that's it.
Standing back and watching you out, whoever was out in the front with the rotaries going, it was deceiving. You looked like you were so close. And
He was
just-
probably a little closer than one rotor arc, but he's, we're familiar and we have this kind of, flow going. But for you guys, if there's room to, if you could just stay like half the rotor arc in front plus another rotor arc, that would make me more comfortable. Also gives us more options for, if you're giving us pretty much the biggest area we could take, then that obviously helps us out a lot.
And you might be surprised the places we can land. They look a lot smaller, especially when we're coming on down in, and we'll get pretty close to the trees or whatnot if we have to. Because in any rescue scenario, if we can land, we're going to land, because that's the easiest and safest way to get people in and out of the aircraft. And when we hoist people out, we might come down as low as 10 feet. It just might not be a suitable landing area, but we're right there. I mean, you might be able to reach up and touch it, but we're not feeling safe putting the tires on the deck.
What's a typical response time to at least get to the area?
That depends on where you are. As far as, like I said, we're about 170 miles from Whidbey, and that takes us about an hour and 20 minutes to get down here. And depending on what alert status we're in, if we have some tactical jet operations at night, we can get off deck in about 15 minutes. On the weekends, we usually say we have 60-minute alert, but typically between 35 and 40 minutes. If everything's all set up and the weather's nice, we don't do any excessive planning, we can be off deck within 35 to 40 minutes.
And then you said an hour and a half.
And then
Yeah,
to come here, yeah.
Yeah, and after that, it's just going to depend on how far away it is, and because we transit about 135 knots is going to be our best airspeed to transit.
Also too, for us, like, communications is pretty key. When we're in Whidbey, when we're in the Whidbey area, we talk to Whidbey Approach Control, the air traffic control entity that takes care of the air station we're stationed at. So when like the local sheriff or whatever has information, they try to pass that information to air traffic control, and air traffic control that can pass it to us. So if there's any way that you can get your information to an agency that can talk to air traffic control to try to talk to us, the more information you can give us from the time you ask us to the time we get there, like say that you guys are answering a lat long you were given, and then you realize that it's actually a bit off from what they had originally told you. If you can update that for us, we're going to find you faster than if we all work with the bad initial lat long. Like, as you get more information that you think would be helpful to us, try to get it to us, even if we're en route.
So you use lat long still. I mean, we do too, but we use UTM mostly.
Lat long is easiest for us to
Yeah,
put into
good.
our system.
Easier for them. They get it.
Yeah.
Because all these kids, they do UTM.
Now, do you monitor 160 State Star, right? Is that what you monitor?
If you guys
we
are going to
can.
be using that, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried calling you guys on the State Star frequency, and apparently you guys were masked by the hill here.
Yeah. but you were easy to spot. You know?
Oh, we know that.
Yeah, we're like, there they are. Yeah, the orange
Yeah,
is key.
the orange shirt.
Key.
There's been multiple cases where the crew is actually text messaging somebody on the ground to get information on what's going on.
Yeah. So if you guys have
It's actually pretty common.
It is.
if you have a cell phone number you can provide to our ODO and have reception, that's pretty key.
Or if you're working with a law enforcement agency that maybe is like at the trailhead or something, because like a lot of the law enforcement agency numbers we have are ground, like landlines. But if there's any connection that they can give us with text, you know, like be creative. Anything you can do that will help the whole crew will be able to respond better.
Is the 4-person crew typical, or does that vary depending
Typically
on the
it's a
circumstance?
5-person crew.
Okay.
It'll be
And what-
one crew. It'll be the 2 pilots, obviously, and then 1 crew chief in the back.
Okay.
1 rescue air crewman, and then the med tech.
Okay.
And we'll always send the med tech down first,
Right.
primarily, for obvious reasons, but it's all situation dependent.
What are your medical people about?
We're almost the level of a paramedic.
Okay.
So we're ACLS capable. We've got patient monitors. We can defibrillate. We can give narcotics for pain management. There's only a few things that we can't do that paramedics can, like central lines and everything. As far as state licensing go, we're EMTBs, but we have a understanding through the state of Washington and through the federal government that we can do things a little bit outside of EMTBs.
Do you have FLIR capabilities?
Unfortunately, we do not. We have a bunch of metal plates to counteract the weight of where it should be. But we don't have the capabilities.
You guys got $2 million bucks?
What is it?
FLIR,
It's a-
forward-looking infrared. So it's my last helicopter had it. It's a pretty cool capability, but this one doesn't have it installed.
We do fly on MVGs at night, though.
Yeah. Obviously, not necessarily going to be able to see the
Not
signature,
necessarily true,
but
yeah.
you know, what I mean, that would just look like a big black blob, but with goggles on, it has more texture to it, so that helps.
You brought up a good point talking about flashlights. Flashlights do help. In fact, there was a time when we were out there trying to find some folks, couldn't find them, and then we told them that if they had any flashlights, to just turn them all on, and then it was like a beacon. We saw right where they were. As long as you don't shine them right at the aircraft, when we get close, it's good to go. But if you're off at a distance, like you're over where that tree line is, and you're trying, it's not going to bother us at all. So, and then if you have the LED lights like that, they're even less of a bother. So,
Those lasers would be bad.
yeah, don't point them at us.
If you kind of rope the ground, that could help. And then with the flashlights, the best way to do it is shine at the tops of trees around you. We can really pick that up on night.
And it will also help us figure out like the texture of the terrain we're working with when we get to you.
And if you do flashing on them, that helps. A lot of the headlamps have the flashing. But you can do something as simple, if it's nighttime, we're having trouble finding, you can do something as simple as taking a glow stick, putting it on a string, and swinging it in a circle. That will definitely help us.
That definitely, that gets our attention.
Would you prefer just a regular glow stick or like IR? Which one would be?
Either one.
Yeah,
regular
either
is fine.
probably just a regular one. That way, you know, because you're looking through the 40% field of view, but you can see peripheral too. So probably just both. Both would cover everything.
You guys, can you run off of like a 9-line? Like we send a 9-line. I mean, the Navy's gonna be the same as like Army. Yep. So, okay.
We
Yeah,
could,
well,
but you could just give us
What's typical is if you call our ODO and and you have the phone number is going to be in that briefing guide at the back. You call the ODO and they have their own little brief sheet they'll fill out for you. So they'll pretty much ask you the specific questions, and big things are we're looking for the lat long, the conditions of the victim, of weather, if you have anything with the weather, if it's like this here is workable, but if you say if you're in the fog or if it's a low overcast, then you might not be able to get it. But anything you give us any kind of heads up what the weather's doing, that's helpful. A phone number of somebody who's going to be on scene or somebody who can get in touch with somebody who's on scene, that's great information to have. But they have, like I said, they have a sheet that will ask you all the specific information that we're looking for.
Okay. Just for me, I can rattle off a 9-line like out of memory. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
so fast, but
Or
And I'd
you'll
write
probably
it
get
down and
confused
then
by
I'd have
that.
to remember what it was.
Depends on the format too.
Yeah.
If you're line 1 or
Yeah.
line 6 or whatever might be a little bit different. So
Okay.
I guess if we understood the same format, it would be easy for us as well.
But you say you give a 9-line to our ODO, they're gonna be confused.
okay.
So you might be able to rattle that off when we get on scene on the Washington State Star frequency, but as far as
You already know it by that point.
yeah, so it's not the best way to do it as far as communicating with the people who need to know that information.
How does your mission differ from the Coast Guard's mission as far as we're concerned?
Coast Guard is probably better over water than we are. We still have good over water capabilities, but they live and breathe over water start. And I think we're a little more capable when we start getting inland up into the mountains. They don't practice as much as we do, so I would say that'd be the primary difference. But we both have really overlapping capabilities on that. Just so who trains where more.
And there's a couple other minor differences. Our helicopters can fly to a higher altitude than their Jayhawk. Our medical technicians are trained more than their medical technicians, and we carry more inland rescue gear than they do. They're limited by the hoist capabilities, and then we have rappelling on top of that.
How many victims can you take out at one time?
It would kind of depend on how they needed to be packaged.
We can take up to 3 lifted quick,
Okay.
and then however many ambulatory we can stuff in on top of that. Officially, we can have 14 passengers with seats, but as you can see, we're not flying with seats today.
Yeah. To do that, we got to take out our ox tank and we have to really reconfigure out the aircraft. So we usually don't do that. We usually take 7 seated passengers. We're gonna put in seats, but most of the time, if people can move and bend enough, we can cram them in there. They've been significantly higher numbers.
How often do you get to fly?
How often do we get to fly?
Yeah.
Once or twice a week, as far as training goes.
Yeah.
And as far as doing actual mission, it depends on when people are out there doing foolish things.
It doesn't necessarily mean they're foolish, it just means they got in trouble.
I said they're doing foolish things. I didn't say they're foolish.
Oftentimes it's foolish.
From being an aircraft commander, what's the next step from the aircraft commander, or is it?
Well, Sergeant Mission Commander. Basically, we have the aircraft commander, and he gets assigned for the aircraft to do any kind of basic routine missions, but for us to be able to go into the mountains, you can be a Sergeant Mission Commander. And once you make Sergeant Mission Commander, you're just waiting for your orders within probably about a year or so. And he's good about letting you get good at your job and then moving on to the next one.
Just out of curiosity, I see the back of your cabin there, in the back there.
Yeah.
So right behind there, is that where the engine is and everything?
Nope.
Oh, that's where your engine
One on
is
each
there.
side here.
Okay.
This is a auxiliary fuel tank, which can actually
Auxiliary
come
fuel
out,
tank.
and that's where there'd be more seats.
I see, okay.
But once we take that fuel tank out, our range and time on station decreases quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's about a third of the fuel.
So you don't have an external fuel bladder?
This aircraft is like the Seahawk, Nighthawk, everything Hawk is, but this particular one isn't piped for an external tank. Any other questions?
Out of curiosity, what can we expect? Like when we have a patient, you guys come in, you come down.
Yeah, well, so
For
our
packaging, how much we pack? You said you leave them on the backboard.
yeah, if you
We
guys
got 'em on the
if
backboard.
and now keeping in mind it depends on what level of care is there because I know you guys we work with the other counties search and rescues quite a bit. This is my first time down here, but their capabilities are always changing. Sometimes they'll have paramedics, sometimes they'll only have a first responder, and sometimes they're lucky to even get that. So it depends on what I come into. If I come into a scene that's controlled and somebody knows what's going on and has done the appropriate steps, then I'm going to have no problem taking that patient and getting them in the aircraft and starting my assessment from that point. If I come across something that's a little bit hibbly, you know, up in the air as to what's going on, then I might redo the assessment. But it all depends on the level of care. And just for continuity of care, I'll probably give them a once over. But if you've already got them strapped to a backboard, I'm not taking them off of that. The most definitive care that I can offer is the helicopter. Because I mean, with all the tools in the world, I can only keep somebody alive for maybe a day if I'm lucky. With the helicopter, I can get them to an ER or surgery in an hour and a half and actually save their life. So the quicker they're in the aircraft, the quicker they're somewhere better and getting that higher echelon care.
This might be kind of stupid. What's the difference between you guys and Life Flight, the ones that fly in?
Quite a bit. Our focus is on search and rescue, where they're doing their medevacs, their ambulances and stuff. Their level of care is very high, and I've got a whole lot of respect for the nurses that fly in there. They fly with 2 nurses, a critical care nurse and a pediatrics nurse. They're dynamite at their job, but they don't do anything inland. Well, not inland, but they don't do any search and rescue. So they have no hoist capability. They have to have a landing zone. It has to be a good quality landing zone. They will land on streets, but not often. So their level of care is much higher, but our area that we can respond to is much greater.
As far as search and rescue, when you have a patient, what is the best thing that you want us to do in preparation for your arrival? The, absolute, oh, this is great, this kind of thing.
My job for me? The anything that you guys can do is benefit. The more hands, I mean, I'm only one person. If I've got my second rescuer with me, I've only got 4 hands, and one person with only 2 people, that's difficult to control. If there's more people than that, then I'm having a bad day. So as much as you guys feel comfortable doing, I'm willing to accept all the help that I can. If you guys are trained and comfortable in doing anything, the medical exams, and if you guys have paramedics or EMTs with IV certs and you can start IVs, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to stop you guys from doing your job, because it only helps me do mine. And then, not to sound, not to be arrogant, but when I get on scene, it's because the helicopter is my responsibility and the crew is my responsibility. It's best for me to function as the on-scene leader at that point and to take charge of that. Now, that being said, whoever's in charge, I've got tons of respect for what you guys do, and you've got probably more experience than I do, so whatever you say, I'm going to take heed of. But because I've got my whole crew to worry about, then I'm going to be worrying about them as well as myself and what's going on. So if I have to, stop what we're doing on the ground to get the patient in the aircraft or get myself in the aircraft, that might have to happen. Does that make sense, Nancy?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have about a half a dozen EMTVs.
Okay.
And 1 or 2 first responders, and the rest are first aid, CPR.
Good.
That's about where we're at.
Way better than nothing.
Yeah.
Seriously, anybody that you guys go and start helping is in a better situation than they were before you got there and before we got there.
But we're definitely going to be taking help, if they're not on a backboard or anything yet, getting them into the litter, getting them to the aircraft, if the aircraft's on the ground. We'll show you with the trail line, we'll lower it down, and how you can help us out that way and stuff like that.
We're crossing rough terrain, having to carry the litter. That's rough, especially if it's 2 people. The more people on that, the better. Even if it's somebody, a 90-pound, 14-year-old girl, we'd want 6, 8 people on there. My arms get tired.
You know that.
Yeah.
So where would you transport the patient once you guys have them in a helicopter in this area? Would you take them all the way back up?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, the closest appropriate medical facility.
Okay.
So wherever we can find that's open.
Now, I haven't looked too much into the the pads around here, because sometimes rooftop pads especially, this is huge compared to like Northwest. But up in there's some airports adjacent to hospitals, or sports fields adjacent to hospitals, or in one particular place, church parking lot adjacent to hospital. So it just kind of all depends on the situation that we have when we get them here, and we have to kind of take a closer look at what you guys have available around here. But yeah.
Could always do things if you needed to fly to Pearson and you need an ambulance there.
Yeah.
You transfer somebody over to the ambulance. You do that as an option, or near territory. There's no like not a hospital nearby that can actually land or any of those land at a hospital. That's another look to keep to. So.
It's actually another place for you guys to relaying calm, because you guys know your area a lot better than we do. You'll know the closest hospital to the area that we're in, and you could let us know where a good place to take them would be, and then contact that hospital or the ambulance for a pickup. Then we'll be making our calls over the radio to do the same thing. It's always nice to have a little bit of overlap on that. Sometimes it's false negative.
Sometimes, even though we talk about it for a half hour, we still don't expect anything to get back.
How many different crews? Different crews you guys have?
Well, we have 9 pilots. We have 11 crewmen and 3 corpsmen, so any combination of 2, 2, and 1 thereof. We don't train in specific crews. We actually train to all work with everybody. So.
You have 2 heroes, is that right, or what?
Yeah. Well, right now we have 2. Right now we have 3, but soon it'll be back down to 2. And just because there's 2 physical helicopters in the hangar doesn't mean that there's always 2 flyable. So we try to keep. I mean, to the max extent that we possibly can. We have 1. And then sometimes we actually have 2. Today's the day we have 2 because we couldn't be here. We didn't have the alert birds sitting on the runway waiting.
So when you came in, did you come in? You didn't come in over Portland first. You just came straight here.
Yeah, we just came straight here, and we tried to come straight over there. That didn't work out, so we followed the river down to the Columbia, and then we came back over Vancouver.
So what's in there? I fly out of Pearson, and that's the only airport in the U.S. that's inside the controlled airspace of another major airport. So I have to call Portland to take off. But it's a good place to land. It's just getting across the bridge. And there's Portland International, and that would be the 2 points of the third triangle. And the third point would be Providence Hospital, and they've got a helicopter port there. But I don't know if there's.
And I'll do some research, and I'll look into it, because now that I'm here and I'm working with you guys, I'm curious to know what kind of capabilities you guys plus us have, once we're done, just so that we know what to ask for.
I know
next.
Southwest Washington has a pad right in the front of, in the parking lot.
See, and,
Right in the parking lot.
as long as there's clearance for a bigger bird, like obviously that would be a more optimal for us, just because the rooftop pads. This is a 22,000-pound helicopter, and those like worth less than
The last thing you want to do is crush their hospital.
Exactly. We don't want to cause damage to the hospital in the efforts to help one facility.
Most of the time when your helicopters are down, is it just for routine maintenance?
Yeah.
Usually?
Yeah, usually just
Okay,
like,
well that's good to know.
lots of routine.
Something always breaking. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, stuff breaking is kind of routine maintenance, but these are like meticulously cared for, like pieces of aviation machinery. So, when they're flying, they're in great shape, and you don't need to be afraid of anything if that's what you're asking.
No, anything that's military issue, you kind of take part.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, if it's down, it's probably still flyable, but because we follow the publication so strictly, we're going to make sure that it's the right way down.
Okay, that's good.
So in an annual year, how many rescue missions do you guys do?
Last year we got 18, 20.
There's around 20 last year, and then
This year we're at 6 searches.
actually, I think 3. We had actually 3 of them were medevacs, if I remember right. Yeah, it's right now we haven't been called very much. And I think the year before we were well above 30, probably closer to 40.
Kind of all depends on how, especially for us being more northern, like when Baker, the recreation areas and the Olympics and around the Cascades, kind of last year it was so cold for such a long time that the upper stuff didn't really open up that much, except to the more kind of mountaineer type instead of just folks hiking and stuff. So it was kind of slow.
Do you only extract live patients?
No.
Okay, because the Coast Guard won't extract.
It's typically it's a live patient, and if the person's deceased, then it's got to be up to the mission commander to make a judgment call if it's making excessive risk to you, you guys are probably gonna hurt yourselves trying to carry out the body, then we can. And there's certain circumstances we can, but usually we try to only take live people.
What about any of the searchers? Presumably live. When you guys take a patient, if there's room, can you take us out if it's somewhere like, you know, only a few people and we're somewhere way the heck out there?
Please, please, please.
Just be case by case, really.
Okay.
It'd
Yeah.
be case by case.
That's better than never.
The biggest reason that we would be pulling somebody out is if we needed help in the back. So if you've got medical expertise and we need another set of hands back there, we'd be pulling people out. But generally, if you get yourself out there, you gotta get yourself out there.
That's why we do this.
That's right.
Or if you guys know the area better and we're trying to find the individual,
Yeah.
picked up to help aid us.
Sometimes, like, we had a mission 2 Fridays ago where, we went out and looked and we couldn't find what we were looking for, and the air traffic controller said, we got spotters if you want them at Bellingham Airport. So we flew and we picked up the spotter, and, so if you guys are, a group of you goes to this situation and you've all looked at the map together and you're very, very much more familiar with these mountains, obviously, than we are, that could be a situation too where maybe you meet you at a trailhead or an intersection of like 2 logging roads or something like that, like coordinate that through like local law enforcement and get a hold of us. That happens occasionally, I would say probably like 25-30% of the time.
Oh, wait, you actually haven't. I think this is the first time we've
Oh,
done it since
really?
I've been here.
Okay.
We picked up
But-
those glacier people.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, so the second time since I've been here in a couple of years. So
I had a
it-
spotter in the bird last Friday.
I think in the past it used to be a lot more common, but it seems like it's kind of getting called late in the game now when people that get on scene and actually are already there. Most time it's beneficial, like if it's going to take you 8 hours to get there, and you say, hey, who's the spotters at the airport on the way there, that works out best as far as grab somebody and have you guys help us get out there. Tennessee definitely really open to that, and we really appreciate that. But
The thing to prepare for though is if you're a spotter, we may leave you there.
Bring-
a lot of things
bring your
depend
pack.
on how high we are and how much room we have, and it's got a lot. It depends on the scenario that really drives that.
So I guess what a lot of what we've been saying is things are very situationally dependent. So we're just another option.
How about in terms of weather? What are the conditions that typically would prevent you from coming in? Is it seeing or?
Well, if we
Yeah.
can maintain VFR in the mountains, pretty much. We obviously we can't fly into the mountains and through the clouds because that's too dangerous. So if it's a little bit thicker here and lower, they'll make this happen. But something like if it's overcast and somewhere low, like we could shoot an approach into Portland, and if we can maintain VFR to the scene, that's something that could work. But usually, like you have the VFR more regarding the scene.
Yeah. Okay.
And we like to try.
Yeah.
If there's a chance, we're gonna come try, and we're gonna try everything. We'll try an approach from one direction. We'll come around. We'll try an approach from another direction. Like, even if the weather's kind of on the edge, we're still gonna try. But just know that, despite the fact that we want to say yes and you really want us to say yes, we're not always gonna be able to.
Sure. So is there a percentage of time where given our climate, that you can't come? 20% of the time when you get called out, can you come? Or hard to say.
There's been a few situations, but I have a hard time putting a number on it just because every situation is so different.
Even in those situations where the Mount St. Helens guy, they got socked in by weather. There's been a couple of situations where they've had to cancel the mission because of weather. They'll usually just wait it out and come back out the next morning, or assemble a different crew and go out if the search is still actively going on. We had one where we got were you on that one too? It was the Liberty Bell rescue, and then we got the second one.
Yeah, it was on that one.
Yeah, and we couldn't get to a gentleman because we were low on fuel and weather was coming in. So we had elected to come back the next morning, but they got him out on foot that night. That's happened a few times. As Lieutenant said, we always
I always want to try. Because, like, you guys call me, heck yes, I'm going to try.
Yeah, that's it. We
I'm gonna
train.
give it everything I got.
Sure.
We
Yeah, of
train
course.
3 times a week for a rescue, and we don't get them that often.
Right.
We're not going to say no to the ones.
And the keeper goes off, man. A couple weeks ago, I was in a dry suit, sweating. I was taking the blade clamps off by myself, and because I was the first one there, and I was just running around the flight line getting everything ready. Well, I had my helmet on, so I couldn't hear anything, and I had my helmet on, and I had like mission brain intact. And we got called off before I even got to start any engines up, but I was just like, let's do this. So,
Like us.
yeah, exactly. I'm sure. It's it's a rewarding mission when you get to complete it, and it's still pretty exciting leading up to that point. So. Anybody have any other questions?
Go.
Okay. All right. So
What we'll do is first we'll just fire up the ape and we'll pull the hoist down, and if you guys want to get show how we get lifted in, or a couple volunteers to show you how we bring you into the cabin or whatnot, and then what we'll do is he'll stay on the ground, because what you guys will normally encounter is we'll have you tend the trailing line, so we don't have to land again or to hoist another guy in. So what we'll do is we'll put Rescue Randy on the ground and we'll hoist him back up and just show you guys how to operate the tent. What we normally do is the rescue crewman or the SMT would ride up with the litter, but for today's scenario, obviously we'll just stay on the deck.
Cool. Alright. You guys want to try anything before we actually fire up the 18 and it gets noisy here? Then we talked about possibly loading the aircraft, loading the litter in before we actually start it up. You guys want to do that while we're getting strapped in? These guys will let us know when it's ready to fire up the 18.
Let me get a volunteer. Pull this guy out here.
Ooh, that hurt my knees.
Alright, let's go. Sit down. Okay. It's getting old. Oh, I'm getting real old. So, search and rescue medic. But I'm hospital 1, agent 2, McIntyre Blank. Subcategory job. So with our medevac litter, there's one standardized way that we prefer to carry it to the aircraft, and there's a couple reasons that we do it the one way. That you can deviate from it fairly easily, but the way that you'll always see us do it is with the senior medical personnel. So in this case, it would be me at the head of the patient, and then whoever else is helping at the foot. So one volunteer. You're there. So the way that we do this, because we're used to working in 2-man teams, is we have one person at the head, one person at the feet. I'm going to be at the head, but this thing's pretty difficult to pick up. It's goofy, and when you're carrying it over rough terrain, you don't want one person facing backwards and one person facing forward, because that's just another accident waiting to happen. The way we do this is you'll turn around. I pick the patient up, put hands behind. I pick the patient up. He grabs on it. And then I come around to the back and pick him up. Always using good body mechanics, which you saw I did.
Yeah.
And then when I carry him to the bird, which we'll just shuffle around. He'll head on in. Notice that we're heading in from the 3 o'clock. And then you just sort of angle yourself. And you can sit on the deck. The crew chief will take over from that point. And we slide him on in. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, right? Similar situation if you've got more than one person doing it. If you have, say, 4 people, which would be better than 2, sit down. Do the exact same thing, you just get people on each corner. If you guys want to grab 2 more people, we'll give that a try. And when we're doing this, I don't have to lift it up for them, because it's a lot easier to pick up. Using good body mechanics, and whoever the senior medical person is, whether it's me, whether it's one of you guys, gives the count. Because you're at the head, and I'm maintaining his airway and C-spine and all that. So we go on 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we carry him in.
So it's always feet first, and it's always you at the head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, whoever's in charge of the patient.
Okay.
let's say we've got a mass casualty, there's 6 or 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be pretty task saturated doing
Right.
other things.
Mhm.
Hopefully I'll have more medical people with me. So whoever's in charge of that patient is going to be the one at the head.
But you want the feet in first every time?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's because you're facing that direction. So if you've ever been carried on a backboard before, you don't want your head going down a hill.
Right.
So, the only time that we do deviate from that, the carrying in that direction, is if you're carrying them up a hill.
Mhm.
Then you want to switch them around so that they're facing downhill, and the reason for that is safety.
Right.
So you've got their head down here, their feet up there. You drop them, and they're riding the helicopter just ended.
And just to give you guys a real quick once over, because once you start, it's gonna be hard to hear. When we're hoisting this up, what he's gonna do is after I lower him the hoist, he gets it hooked up. We're gonna slide to the left a little bit. That way he's got room to pull on the tending line, keep as much pressure as he can on this. Because if he starts spinning, it can bad day coming real soon. And the foreman or the other crew will be riding on top of this, but not today. He's probably heavy enough where he won't spin, but you know, there's some cases where it's us going up with an empty litter, and it's once he starts spinning, you just gotta take it. It's no fun, really. And what we'll do then is we'll either put the guy in the trees and kind of stop him, or bring him back down to the deck.
And you'll
Kind of like an ice skater. If you try to pull in, you're going faster now. It's happened. Kind of a regular thing. But, you know, if you hit the wind just right, you start spinning, you just gotta stop.
Have you done it at night yet?
Not at night.
Yeah. Wait till you do it at night.
Address the static electricity.
If we lower the hook, just let it hit the ground first. A lot of the crewmen will just hit with the back of our hand and stuff. It doesn't. It's very rare that you're gonna get zapped. It's not that bad. I've been zapped several times, but as a rule, just let it hit the ground first.
Supposedly creates 20,000 volts of static electricity.
Yeah, I've never really had a chance getting it too bad.
I got it pretty
Over
bad.
the water is where
I was standing on a wet rock, and Rush hit me with the thing, and I got pretty bad.
It only hits you when you're not looking for it. You know,
Does it-
You let it hit or you hit it with your hand. It'll be at one time, go grab it.
Is there a risk when the chopper's going when you're loading a patient of having static electricity? As long as it's in
So,
contact with the
When
ground?
when the aircraft's touching the ground,
Then
we
you're
have
fine.
grounding.
Ground rod.
You
Yeah,
can actually
okay.
see little whips hanging on each side there.
Oh, okay.
That's the ground system.
So as long as you're on the ground, we're okay.
Oh, yeah. Does anybody want to practice putting the litter in and out of the bed? It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Nothing really crazy about it.
We'll do a couple hoists here just to show you guys how we bring people in and out, and then get to the trail line.
Yeah. It's just sort of gee whiz information, but when we walk the patient in, he goes in feet first. When we hoist him in, he's going to go in head first. And the reason for that is because of the way the hoist works, the way the litter carries, and when you're riding the litter up, when you're actually attached to it, you're facing the patient, because good patient care, you don't want to be looking at their feet. You'd rather be looking at their head because you can tell if they have an airway problem. And then you've got control at the deck when they start going in. So when you're walking in, it's going to go feet first. When they're hoisting in, he's going to go head first. Yeah.
And that's also, you know, we want his head facing aft because we don't want to hit him on this tire here. And all right, so let's go ahead and set Randy here off to the side.
Huh? Okay, cool. Let me just throw on the helmet real quick.
And a lot of the time the crewmen will, on the ground, will either be up wireless ICS. Doesn't have a very good range though, so if that's not working, foreman always carry a brick.
Salmon Creek's the smallest in there in the corner off the ER. Southwest is they got lights around it and a big concrete pile right in front of on the road.
Army, maybe?
Air Force.
Air Force?
Yeah, probably too smart. Level 2 or level 1 pump.
I love the Marine.
Level 1, because level 2.
Watch it.
I do get pushed.
But yeah, you also have the manual for each hospital.
Hard to complain about this job.
Yeah. No, it's all earplugs and that. It's not too bad.
What?
Did you get earplugs? Don't worry about that.
I know.